Hello again, everybody. I'm Steve. I'm an alcoholic, and this video is going to be about my experience with step 2 of 12 in the 12 steps of recovery. Step 2 says, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The recommended reading for step 2 is chapter 4 in the big book called We Agnostics, which is basically the original members of AAA saying, we didn't believe in God when we started either. This is how we came to believe. And don't forget, God is a higher power of your understanding, not religious. That's what chapter 4 is, We Agnostics. And also step 4 in the 12 and 12. So what's important to note about step 2 is that right after step 1, where you give up the fight and you admit that you're powerless and your life has become unmanageable, the very next thing that it's suggested you do is get in touch with a higher power of your understanding. The idea being that you're powerless by your own mortal human devices, and there is a greater power out there in the universe that can help you. It is not defined. Specifically, it is not defined as being Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Muhammad, what have you. It's none of that because it's specifically and intentionally not religious, so as not to try to get you to believe in any particular manifestation of God. It's a higher power of your understanding, what you come to believe it to be in your own heart for yourself. That is by design and that is intentional, not a religious program. So at the very beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous in the mid-30s, this guy named Ebby Thatcher came to Bill Wilson, who you may have heard of, and said, hey, I went to this place called the Oxford Group. They suggested that I pray to God to help me with my drinking, and it worked. Bill Wilson tried it, and it worked for him. And then he felt inspired to go and share that with another alcoholic, and that was Dr. Bob. And he said, Dr. Bob, I tried praying about my drinking, and as it turns out, God, a higher power, helped me stay away from a drink one day at a time, and I've been sober for however so long, and it's working for me. And when Bill W. and Dr. Bob went and found alcoholic number 3, at that point, that was the birth of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so that was however so many years ago in the mid-30s, and that's been the foundation of it ever since. The program of the 12 steps, the program of recovery, is about a spiritual solution. Don't let that freak you out. It did freak me out at first. Because when I got to step 2 with my sponsor, I told him, this isn't going to work for me because I'm a Darwinist, I'm an atheist, I thought I was an intellectual, I had a scientific explanation for everything, there is no God, there's no ultimate divine spirit of the universe or what have you, so I don't think this is going to work for me. And my sponsor stopped me in my tracks right there and he said, none of that matters. What does matter is, do you have the willingness to at least open your mind up just a little bit and your heart up just a little bit to the idea that there could possibly be a God? And I said, yeah, I can do that. I think that I can do that. And I was still suffering, so I had some willingness. And I'm like, who am I to say that there's no God, that there's no divine spirit of the universe? I don't know. So I was willing to open my intellectual mind up just enough to think that, yeah, there could be. I said, all right, good. Then that's all you really need to do at the very beginning. And he said, I'm going to make another suggestion. I'm going to suggest that even though you don't believe in a higher power right now, that in the morning, when you roll out of bed, hit your knees and pray to this higher power that you don't believe in yet. Just take the action, pray to this higher power to help you, for help staying away from a drink and a drug for just that one day. Do you have the willingness to do that? And I said, yes, I do. He said, good. Then you go out through your day, go to a meeting, do your recovery related stuff, focus on the day, how you're going to not drink for that one day. And then when you go to bed at night, as you're getting into bed, hit your knees again and pray. And if you are able to stay away from a drink and a drug for that one day, pray to this higher power that you don't believe in yet, giving thanks for helping you stay away from a drink and a drug for that one day. Do you have the willingness to do that? And I said, yes, I do. He said, perfect then. That's the essence of step 2. And that, as it turns out, was the very beginning of my spiritual journey. And more would be revealed. One of the things that I had to do when I was praying at the very beginning was I had to create sort of an intellectual bridge to kind of convince myself to believe that there was a higher power, if that makes sense. So intellectually, I thought to myself, well, the earth is an incredible place. It's got all these ecosystems and species of living creatures, and we've got the atmosphere, and then there's the sun, and you got the solar system, and we've got oceans, and we've got green plants, and we've got deserts, and we've got Antarctica, and it's all so amazing. And man did not create that. Man did not create the sun. Man did not create nature. He didn't create the planet Earth or its ability to have life on it. So what created that? There had to be something, because it's all so awesome and it's all so perfectly designed, and man didn't create the ecosystem and how the Earth's environment works and supports life. So there had to be something that created it, and that was my little sort of pep talk that I gave myself every time that I prayed, because that kind of convinced me to believe that there could be a higher power and a divine sort of spirit of the universe. I refer to it as the universe, by the way, these days. And so I didn't have to figure out what God was. I didn't have to define God. My sponsor explained to me that action precedes understanding. That means don't think that you have to figure out what God is or who God is before you start praying. Start praying first. Take the action, have the willingness to hit your knees and pray for help and to pray for thanks, and then give your higher power the opportunity to reveal itself to you. And how that's described in our literature is uses metaphors like just crack the door open just a little bit and your higher power will push it open the rest of the way. And that has been my experience. As they say, God does not make harsh terms for those that seek him. Meaning that if you just open your mind up just a little bit and say, all right, I'm willing to have my higher power reveal itself to me, taking that action is the start. And that's where it can unfold from there. And that's certainly how it was for me, because when I started praying, I had no God in my life whatsoever. But I was willing to take the action. I prayed to a higher power that I didn't believe in yet. And I prayed for help in the morning, and I prayed for thanks at night. And that's where it started. It certainly has evolved from there, but that's my experience with step 2.